snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hi guys! So I am here today to do a book review, and the book that I'm going to be reviewing is Valour, which is the second one in the Faithful and the Fallen series by John Gwynne. This is a 4-book series. The third book is coming out sometime this month, and I pre-ordered it because I really enjoyed the first and the second one. And the second one, Valour, was definitely my favourite. So let's get into what this one is all about. This story continues immediately on from where the first story leaves off. I really enjoyed the first story. I had a few small quibbles with it in the fact that it uses a lot of tropes from the fantasy genre, but that wasn't a big problem for me because John Gwynne wrote the story really well, even though he was using a lot of fantasy tropes. And I was kind of hoping that he was going to stray away from the tropes a little bit more into the second book and start to define his own story rather than just using lots of different elements and lots of different tropes, which the first book felt a little bit like. So I gave the first book a 4 out of 5 stars, and this one I ended up giving a 5 out of 5 stars. I actually read this as a buddy read with Michael from Bitten by a Radioactive Book, and I have to say we both really enjoyed this. It was a lot of fun to get through, a lot of fun to read, and it was definitely a big improvement on the first book because although the first book was really fun, this one seemed to go some unusual ways and had some twists and turns. John Gwynne is a fairly new author, but actually he's really great. Malice was his debut book and Valour is only his second one. And it seems like he's a fantastic writer, so I'm really looking forward to his future books and just discovering more about the world and the characters within this storyline. The fact that this one picks up right after the ending of book number 1 is great because we're thrown straight back in with the characters that we already know and love, and we also have a lot of action straight off the cuff. One thing I did really enjoy about this book was that we had quite a lot of new POVs that we got to see. This is a multiple POV book and it does employ lots of different characters, so if you don't like multiple POV books you probably won't enjoy this, but for me it was really well done, and the balance between the different characters and the length of their chapters was great because they were all fast, all snappy, and it was really easy to get through a chapter and then another chapter and then another chapter and just keep on reading and reading and reading. The story itself focuses largely on this upcoming war between men and gods. There was once a prophecy that was talked about where it talks about these two people being born and casting the world into complete and utter disarray and chaos. One of these would be the Black Sun, who was ASROTH'S chosen heir and the leader of the Fallen, and the other one would be the Bright Star, who was ELYON'S chosen and would be leader of the Faithful. These people are unknown by most of the people living within this world, but by this point of the story we have a pretty strong idea about who is who and what is going on with their storylines, and try and guess what will happen when they inevitably meet each other and have a clash. The thing I most enjoyed about this book, as I said before, is that the chapters are all really snappy, they're all really quick, they're all really short, so you get snapshots from all around the world, and although it is snapshots and you're not going into massive detail because there are so many for each character and you're constantly flipping between all their storylines, the whole story weaves itself together very well and very concisely, and you do find that you get to know these characters even though you are only with them for short amounts of time at one go. And so I really enjoyed the fact that every chapter was fast, every chapter was quick, and there was usually something going on. It wasn't necessarily huge every time, but a lot of the time it was something interesting, and that was good. The characters of this world range from humans to wolves, to giants and to gods, so we have quite a range of different characters. There are all sorts of alliances and enemies. Each race and everyone has to choose a side that they are going to fight for, Bright Star or the Black Sun. And this is made even harder and more difficult by the fact that not everyone knows who these characters are, and so they may accidentally ally themselves with someone who thinks they are the Bright Star or thinks they are the Black Sun, when actually they may not be. So we don't know exactly who is and who isn't. We're just guessing, we're just formulating an overall view, but actually some of the people and some of the races within this book might be allying themselves with the wrong person or becoming enemies with the wrong person. So it's quite interesting in that no one really knows what's going on, but people still have to pick a side, and some of them don't choose correctly and some of them do. Some of the characters who I really enjoy include Corban, who is a young boy in the first book, and he's growing up as we go through the story. Seems to be the central focus of a lot of the story, but he doesn't necessarily know why. Corban's been through a fair amount of struggles. We've seen him grow up, we've seen him go through bullying, we've seen him come through the other side, and how he's evolved as a character because of the things that happened to him when he was younger, and he's dealt well with what he's been given in life. He's a fighter, and he's a loyal character to his friends, and he's the sort of character that knows that if he relies on his friends, he'll get through anything, and I really enjoyed seeing his resilience and his loyalty. Then we have MAQUIN. MAQUIN is a member of the GADRAI, and he is set on a path of vengeance throughout the course of the book. He too knows the value of his shield brothers. His shield brothers are like sworn brotherhood friends, and he fights valiantly alongside them for what he believes in. His storyline definitely took some interesting turns that I wasn't expecting, and he's also a really resilient character, and he bounces back a lot from these terrible things that happen, so I really enjoyed him as a character and as a person to follow. Then we have NATHAIR. NATHAIR is the young king who is ruling over a section of this world, and he and his followers are on a rather large undertaking when we see him in this book. He believes in a noble cause, he believes that he is following the right path, and he will do anything to achieve his final goal because he knows in his heart of hearts that what he is doing is right, or he believes it is. He's a good leader, he's a fair one, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he does everything right or always makes the best decisions. He's still young, and with all sorts of enemies and people out there wanting to hurt him or strike at him, he has a lot to face and a lot to deal with. This causes him to go on a path of many struggles. Then we have VERADIS. VERADIS is the first sword of NATHAIR, so he is a good friend to NATHAIR, and they were both young men together growing up, and they've been with each other since the start of the first book. He is a brilliant fighter. He's definitely one of the best in the world right now. He trains day in, day out to be the best in order to protect NATHAIR, who he has a very, very strong loyalty to. He's loyal to a fault, and he will never ever abandon the leader he is following, but when doubts do start to plague him and he has a lot of questions arise about the actions that he and NATHAIR have been taking, he has to do a lot of internal questioning, and I really enjoyed seeing him deal with the things that he was presented and deal with the way everything was unfolding, and I love his character generally. He's one of the favourites for me. RHIN is the queen of a certain part of this land, and she is a rather treacherous young woman. She seems to be quite manipulative, and she definitely seems like she wants more power than she has. She believes that she should rule over all of the west of the banished lands, and she definitely is going to stop at nothing to achieve her goal. She is ruthless, and she is ready to take whatever is thrust her way. She's nasty and cruel and definitely a creepy character, so I enjoyed her for the creepy, ruthless nastiness of her character. Then we have FIDELE. FIDELE is the mother of NATHAIR, and she is kind of the regent whilst he is off gallivanting around the world trying to achieve his noble aims. She is taking over back at home, and she is ruling the land there for him. She is a very fair leader, and she's very just and noble, and all she is trying to do is to do the best for her people when the safety of her land is being threatened by the THALEN, who are her allies, but not necessarily her friends. She's forced to take some actions that she really doesn't want to do, and she's forced to carry out some harsh punishments. She also goes through some rather messed up things, but I really enjoyed the fairness of her character and the way that she was always trying to do her best. She really had a strong sense of loyalty and self, and she did what she believed in, and for me that was something I really connected to. Then we have CYWEN. CYWEN is CORBAN'S sister, and she again is a very interesting character. She's a young lady, and she has an important role in this book by being our eyes and ears in one of the places where we have a lot of enemies. She's a character who feels very lonely because the events of the previous book have made her to be separated from other characters she knows and loves, and she's worried for the fate of her family and friends a lot of the time throughout this book, which is understandable. So she does tend to strike out at the people she's with, and she has quite a strong fiery anger within her. Despite her feistiness, she is a great character to read about, and her actions speak louder than words. She really does try and stay loyal to what she believes in and try and get to the ultimate goal of discovering what's going on around her and also reuniting with the people she wants to be with. So I really did enjoy seeing her point of view, and I think it was a really great addition to the book that we got to see more of her point of view and see her relationship with the people around her who are not necessarily nice people all the time. One other thing that I do want to mention about this book in particular was that the animals of the world did seem to play a much bigger part and a much bigger role in this book than they did in the first one, which to me was great. I really enjoyed seeing that, and the magical elements involving animals, and just generally the magic of the world certainly got more explained in this book and more evolved, and we got to see more characters using and employing magic, which was great. So on the whole, this book was excellent. It was fast paced, it was really easy to get through, it was definitely what I wanted to read at the time, and I read through it very quickly. I really enjoyed it, and I would have to say that this one is one I would highly recommend, because even though it does employ some tropes, it's a lot less than the first book, and it's a lot more interesting than the first book, and I feel like John Gwynne's writing style is just highly readable and very fun. So if you've not picked up the Faithful and the Fallen series yet, but you've been eyeing it up, I would definitely recommend that you do go and pick it up. I would love to hear your thoughts if any of you have already read it. And I have already pre-ordered book number 3 in the series, RHIN, so whenever that comes out I will be picking that one up and reading it and then reviewing it again for you guys. And of course I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars because it was awesome. Please do let me know your thoughts. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all very soon in another video. Bye! Me and you gonna have a little chat.